Well, you know, it's always a question to some degree which of our partial realities is true and which of them is false. It is to some degree context dependent as well, because the environment tends to move around, you know, like, so you might say that there was a set of relatively more radical left-wing ideas that were more appropriate in 1964 than they are now, say with regards to civil rights, and because the underlying situation has actually changed, and so the representation should change. Is it false consciousness? Well, that's a very deep question, because it depends on what you mean by false. I mean, people are motivated by all sorts of, people have all sorts of motivations that they don't necessarily understand, and sometimes they put forward one set of motivations as a mask for another set of motivations. I mean, one of the things I've been trying to unpack, for example, is there's a Marxist claim that the Marxist theory is predicated on care for either the working class or the oppressed, depending on whether it's classical Marxism or sort of identity politics Marxism. And I read a book by George Orwell called Road to Wigan Pier, where he questions that assumption. He said, as far as he was concerned, the English socialists that he met, and this was back in the 1930s and 40s, didn't so much like the poor as they hated the rich. Well, maybe that isn't true of everyone who wants to speak for the working class, but it's certainly true of a substantial number of them. Often you use an ideological mask to shield from yourself what your true motivations are. Say, well, you look at Marxism and you think, well, are the Marxists actually motivated by compassion and the desire to help the working class? Well, then you allow the Marxist ideas to unfold in society and you watch what happens. What happens is the working class gets slaughtered, and so does everyone else. And so then there's an indication that the stated motivations and the real motivations aren't the same. And that's a big problem. And you see, because we're polarizing in our society now, you see that sort of thing happening all the time. It's not easy to put your finger on what the actuality of the situation is. I think ideologies are like that often, is that they place a mask of virtue over a dark set of motivations. And I really do think that that's the case with well, it tends to be the case with extremist ideologies, period. You know, I'm standing for the nation, and so, but no, I really have a tremendous amount of hatred and I'm going to take it out on anyone who's foreign. You know, that's sort of typical of the Nazi type ultranationalists. And then on the left, it's like, well, I like the poor and the oppressed and I stand for them. It's like, well, no, you're just resentful and jealous, and you don't believe that hard work matters because you don't work hard and you don't plan to. And so you can place a mask of virtue over your miserable, destructive resentment, and then you can tolerate looking at yourself in the mirror. And so, I mean, this is why I'm no fan of ideologies, generally speaking, because they have exactly that property.